Welcome to Coffee and Cannabis. I'm your host, Eliza, and this is...
Corey, what's up?
And this is our final one of NECANN, and it's definitely going to be our best because we have the most incredible guest. He has been so supportive of our journey, allowing us space to come and add value to the conference, talk to people, and I feel like we don't know enough about Mr. Marc Shepard of NECANN. So please give it up for the man with the plan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you guys so much for the invite. Being on this fantastic couch, I've watched it, I've seen it, I've dreamed. So now another dream come true to be here. So really appreciate it. Very nice to sit with you guys, and yeah, just so excited to be sitting down at the end of the second day of NECANN. It's fantastic.
Look, you see, we bring healing energy. He needed a goddamn break.
Yes.
His legs were tired, and we allowed him to chill for a second.
He was just like, oh, do you want to come and sit for a pot? Yes.
Yes.
You don't even say sit for what, just come and sit. Yes.
I love it. Well, thank you for making time, because I know you're extremely busy. We're going to get into this interview. Coffee, we do what we do. You know,
big
we're
convention
here.
Coffee, big convention.
Corey, we got some smoke?
Well, you know, since he created NECANN and is running the show, I can't really smoke here.
Oh shit, the boss who enforces the rules is right next to me?
Yeah, the boss is right here. So, but I'm always shouting out high prophecy. I can't say how I got it, but I got that high prophecy. I'm gonna light this up outside right after.
We're gonna let y'all know how that go. So let's get into this interview, because this is gonna be something that you're gonna extract tremendous value from. Marc, I know that you are really an OG in this game. So I know you had to have seen a ton. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when first starting NECANN as an actual business?
No, it's a great question, because now we're talking about 2014. So in Massachusetts, medical was legal, but there was no way to buy it. So there was no way to obtain it. And, you know, everyone was still in that battle of normalization and like, how do we make this available for people? No one knew anything, and you had, you know, people being like, wow, could this help my mother? So we just saw a need, like there's a need to, one, legitimize and normalize cannabis medicine at the time, and how we want to do that in a business atmosphere. And then also, we're like, people need information. Doctors didn't want to talk about it. So to have that first show, it really was a medical information show. There were no cannabis businesses in 2014. So starting it that way and trying to find those people and find the speakers where, you know, we had no background for it. So it was so much reach out, and then you had to kind of paint a picture of what you were doing. People were like, it's a cannabis convention? Like, how does that work? There's no cannabis there? So that was very challenging. We put together what we thought was a really good show, and then this is actually a horrific, nightmare memory for me. But that winter in Boston, I don't know if you remember, 2014, it was the winter where it snowed like a foot every week for 6 weeks. That was the 6 weeks leading up to the show. So there was 7 feet of snow on the ground in Boston. And then 2 weeks before the show, the Patriots won the AFC Championship game. So the Super Bowl was the second day of the show, because we were a Saturday, Sunday show. So 2 weeks out, we made the decision, we're going to move the date. And we had to recontact everybody, rebook the entire show. And then for the next 10 days, it just snowed every day. And when we showed up in the morning of the show at because we were panicked at about 6 o'clock in the morning, we had to shovel out both entrances to the venue. All the sidewalks was iced. It was just horrible. And then when we went inside, we were like, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. And then an hour before the show, we looked outside. There were 3,000 people waiting in line to come in, and it was snowing. And we were like, wow, this was needed to be done. Like, we didn't do anything great, but people were like, oh yeah, I want to go to that. So it was very challenging, but it was also just a great moment.
Also, people in Boston not scared of snow.
No, we were just worried about how would people even get here. You couldn't park anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, they heard weed. They heard weed.
They came
That's what they heard.
And you fulfilled a need.
Yeah.
And you noticed that there was a need there before the market was so big. Now, so is this is the 10th show?
It's our 5th year in New Jersey, but the one in March in Boston was our 10th one.
10 years
10
in
years.
business. And then strategically making it regional, which I think is genius, and I think that has really been valuable to operators because, and I wrote about this in one of my recent blog posts, is that MJ BizCon is incredible. It's like a big celebration for everybody to come and be family together. But from a business perspective, it's not really beneficial for people that maybe if we're on the East Coast, that's not my market.
Right.
You know, that brand awareness, I can't really quantify that or make, know if that's
Right.
going to benefit me. But it's community. But this is supporting us. It's giving us visibility. It's putting us in front of folks. The growth that you've had in 10 years, and then to have that tremendous story about fulfilling a need. How does it feel right now to now look at this and see what it's transformed into?
I mean, New Jersey has been a revelation. You say the 10 years of Boston, I don't want to say like the shine is off the rose, but we feel like, okay, we succeeded. And I'm from Massachusetts. I don't want to say it was easier, but it certainly is. It's a much easier thing to do when you know everything in the town, you know the people. So we were like, we know what Massachusetts needs. So we did that, and now that show kind of takes care of itself. And we've been doing shows everywhere else, but we don't know, like, are we actually having that impact in any other market? Or are we just another kind of like, hey, there's lots of conventions. You guys do a good job, you do okay, but you're the same. And this show, New Jersey, the last 2 years, has taken what I would call those sort of quantum leaps that only our Boston event has done. So now we're up to the point where we've had to move into a much bigger hall. We're going to be looking at 350 plus exhibitors next year. We might have to think about extra days or more sessions, and we just didn't know if that was going to happen. And so to be here in the 5th year in New Jersey and see that leap is, it's just, we didn't know if it would happen. So it's fantastic that it did.
And that's great when you can come into a market and they really align and support you.
Yeah,
right?
That's what we've learned, and because again, we didn't invent this business, a lot of people doing it, and I said, geez, looks like when everybody does what we are trying to do, these regional shows, as soon as they leave their market, it's just not the same. Right. And so we said, what's the difference? Hey, dummy, you don't know anybody. Right. So, we did our first couple shows in New Jersey, and then we're like, we got to wise up. And that's why, it's a funny story how we connected with 420 NJ Events is 2 years ago, accidentally, we booked our show, didn't know Stanley and Brendan, and I kind of noticed about 2 months out, oh shit, they're doing an event the same weekend at the same time. And so I was like, oh shit, that's, I didn't want to do that. So I reached out to them and I was like, I just wanted to make it clear to them, like, we didn't target your date. I would never do that. It's like, wow. And what can we do to maybe get people to go to both events? And we had a great conversation. I was like, wow, those guys are fantastic. And so as soon as the show was over, I said, we should talk. We should do this together. Right. And after talking to them, 2 conversations, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe everything they bring to the table for what we need to do here. And it was just such a relief and a revelation. And then of course to then learn that they're 2 great people that I've really grown to respect and love to work with. So there's a little bit of a luck factor, like you're like, hey, you meet the right people and you put the energy out there, and they pointed us in the direction of so many other people, and now we feel like we have almost that, like, wow, we know the people here now, and you kind of can say, who can we count on, who needs help, who deserves help, and let's make this work.
Yeah. Synergistic relationships, right? And that's been, I think, the trend of our conversations here at NECANN has been how important relationships are.
Right.
If you're in a market that's where you're familiar, but you expand it, it becomes this thing where people can be territorial. However, when you do what you did, which is extend the olive branch and say, this was not malicious, let's partner together, let's make this make sense.
Right.
And now look, it's everybody in one convention. It's so dynamic, it's so diverse.
Right.
This is probably one of the most diverse conferences that I've been to. How do you feel about that? I mean, because even that is changing the stigma of cannabis.
Absolutely, and it's been a revelation for it to happen, because we immediately copied this model for Maryland. I don't know if you went to our Maryland show.
I did not, but I was following what you were doing because I love that you got with the BCB guys.
Yeah, so we realized that was the key. We did a ton of outreach for Maryland. You scheduled the show almost 2 years out, and you provide value to those people in the market, and that was an incredibly diverse show. And it was one of those ones that's been probably the most educational piece for me, is coming from an incredibly white bread upbringing where I knew there were people of color because I saw some on TV, right. And not really understanding that there's a different world with different rules for different people, and I just never knew.
Yeah.
And then coming into this and meeting all the people and hearing their stories and knowing, I'm like, wow, it's crazy different. But even in Boston, first 4 or 5 years, we're like, oh, we're doing a bit. We're saying, hey, anybody wants to speak, you can speak.
Right.
Of course, no people of color applied. They're not in our circle. I don't know any. So just by default, through, I guess you just call them, just not really thinking it through, we had an incredibly non-diverse event in Boston. And I'm sure you know, even if you're doing a good job, it's difficult to get a critical mass because there just aren't a lot of people of color in the market. So we really had to get help from people. There's one of them right there, Drew Ledbetter, who reached out to us.
Shout out to Drew. That's
why we were there.
She reached out and instead of just criticizing, she said, look, I think you can do better with this. And she said it with an incredibly positive thing, and said, yeah, and I'll help. Yeah. And so again, just being able to have those people reach out, and it opens your eyes. And I'm like, right, I can't reach the people you can. I need you. I've got to start being proactive and get these people here. So Boston, we're hoping, I don't think it's ever going to be, as great of a diverse mix as New Jersey and Maryland, but I hope it gets up to its appropriate level where it needs to be. And it's just a relief to me because you look around and you feel guilty, like, why is my event so, non-diverse? I did everything I could, and then you're like, you didn't do everything you could. You felt like, you covered your ass. You can tell people you tried. I'm like, but in business, you can try. You can say, I need this to happen. Right. And that's the difference. You have to, it has to happen.
Go ahead, Joy. No.
I would say, like, for me, going to NECANN's a no-brainer at this point, right? It's like, I've been in cannabis for over 6 years. I've been to MJ BizCon plenty of times. I've been to Interfex. I've been to, CB, and plenty of NECANNs as well. I think the biggest differentiator is that culture part, right? Of by bringing in someone of that market into it, it allows the culture, it stops it from just being business, right? It's like, this is almost, if you're working or existing in cannabis in New Jersey, this is like your homecoming party, right? If you graduated from college, you look, oh, we'll go back for homecoming, and I'll see all the people and see how everyone's doing. That's what NECANN is in your market. It's like, all right, I'll go to NECANN, I'll talk and see all the people, we'll hang out, we'll go to the after party, and it'll be a good time, and then the rest of the year, we're just gonna work. Right. So, I think that's a very big differentiator specifically for NECANN because it's market-driven with people of the market, and you get to see your peers, for a couple of days, once a year kind of thing.
No, absolutely. It's definitely when you mentioned the difference between MJ BizCon, which obviously I learned almost everything I know about the convention business from going to other conventions like that one. So I admire the model. I wish I had the money, but it was one of the first things. I was like, what am I going to do? Compete with that? And does there need to be another national show? No. And so that was sort of our thought, like, why don't we just make a show for the local people? And that's part of our thought, is always get all the local people in the room the first couple of years, let them meet each other, learn where they can work together and go, wow, we can keep the tax revenue and the jobs and all the benefit here. And then, then if everything can't be supplied locally, eventually outside people will come. Right. And that's that's a good part of the convention, but they only come if it's an opportunity where the local people aren't already taking care of it. Right. So it works for everybody. Like, we do need you here because we can't get that locally. Right. And so it's this nice self-feeding model.
With that, I want to say that it's obviously clear that you have an incredible lens for insight into the future, right? Saying that, you've done this show so many times, you actually know what happens as the years progress. Yeah. Right? The first 1 to 2 years, or I'd say 2 to 3 years, if a market flips, you get to, like, you went to Maryland, you're seeing all the seeds of the players. Right. Then you see who develops. Yep. Then you see who's successful. Then you see who turns into a power player, whose voice is strong, and now that's the person that you get to put on your stage because we're 4 or 5 years in, and now you're talking about 10. Now those people need to be the leaders to talk to as this develops, right? Absolutely. What are your predictions about the industry, the competition, and the future innovation that you see within the New Jersey cannabis industry?
You say the explosion that happened the last couple of years, now this is what I call the real competition phase. Like, it's all good. Anybody who's had success, they've earned it, they've worked hard, they've done it, but it's almost like, you're playing basketball in a court and there's only 15 people there. They're going to open the doors and let everybody in, and we'll see who the best is. So,
right.
and a lot of times you'll see a lot of negative messaging because so many people, it's such a great opportunity, so many people jumping in, people have to fail. Mm-hmm. And the coverage will go out that like, cannabis business is failing in New Jersey. So the popular thing will be like, that green market, it's a crash. But it really isn't. It's just a matter of like, there's gold, but there's 100 miners in gold for 10 people. Right. 10 people are going to make it rich. And then they'll focus on like whatever. So you will probably start seeing that negative messaging because dispensaries are going to go out of business. But it's going to be because they lost in fair competition to their competitors, and overall, the number will increase. You see a massive price drop for everything, and that will level the field. The people that can afford to be in business at that low number, like in Massachusetts, 2 years ago, the idea that I could walk into a dispensary and buy an ounce for $100, I wouldn't even imagine. But now you can.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. I think everybody knows it, but that's what will happen here. That will determine the winners and losers. Who's ready for that?
Well, I think the difference in the wordplay of it's not that the industry or a market crashes, it becomes competitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and competition breeds business, and I think one of the cool things I like about Massachusetts is that you guys basically had a cannabis cup at this year's event. So I'm looking forward to probably 2 years from now when that happens in Jersey, because the thing happening in Jersey right now is all the cultivation licenses are finally getting going, right? Whether big or small, you're seeing the Prolifics and the Brutes Roots, and all of them, but then you also are seeing the Bangos, the Garden Greens, the Clade Nines. So seeing that the more cultivators, so I'm really excited about when we can do like a cannabis cup here. Right. And obviously Mass has 10-year head start. Like things have to get to that point.
We're only in our 5th year of the Cup in Mass, and we are planning one for New Jersey. A little bit of a challenge because there's no home grow. You can only do licensees. You need a critical mass, and you do need to reach out to the regulatory agency and say, listen, this is what we want to do. We want to make sure we're in compliance.
How do we do it? Yeah.
So you have to work with them to build the plan. The Masses, there's rules, but it's kind of like you can't really get any guidance on like, this is what we're going to do. Right. But I don't want to do that, assume I could do that in New Jersey, So there's hurdles. But yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's huge for the industry. People like that sort of like, hey, we want accreditation, not just the people said we're best. So, and if we do one, 5 more people will do them.
Yeah.
And so not like we invented it, but like same thing with conventions. We did one in Boston. By 3 years later, there were 5 in Boston. Right. So, and it's good for the industry that there's more. There just is.
This is definitely a really important conversation. I don't think a lot of people want to bring in the negativity about it, but it's not negative. It's business.
Right.
People will fail, and we actually need people to fail.
Right.
Because it is part of this process. And I think it's really important for everybody to understand that tone now, because it is coming. Dispensaries are opening, and in the next 2 to 3 years, dispensaries will be closing.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean that this is not a successful market. It doesn't mean that cannabis doesn't breed opportunity. It's that there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers.
Well, it's supply and demand, right? Like the state has so many people, and that comes with a certain level of demand, and time will dictate who are the suppliers of it. Right, whether from a flower standpoint, manufacturing, cultivation side, and from the retail side too, right? It's like we just only need so many to handle this level of demand and still be able to have good business or equitable business where actually people can make a living off of it.
I love it when you make it make sense. It's sexy to me. Listen, Mark, you mentioned MJ BizCon, right? And there being something that you can learn from, but they are a different type of business, and they are more national, you're more regional. I don't think that enough people consider that sustainability, in my opinion, is really synonymous with adaptation, because this environment is ever changing. How have you had to adapt your business model or your strategy in response to this environment?
We've had to make a lot of changes from our original model. And we did our first show in Boston in 2015, and we moved into the Heinz in 2016. And in 2019, 3 years later, NECANN, NCIA, CWCBE, MJ BizCon actually had a reservation. There were 5 scheduled at the Heinz. You're like, so are we just going to hope we're the best out of the 5? You really had to say, how do we differentiate? What value can we bring? And as the local guys who, we're not publicly traded, and the group of NECANN people are all in people, I was just like, we can beat people on price. We're going to have to deliver the same value, but we're going to hustle. We're going to be bare-boned. We cut the staff down to nothing, and we said there's no job too small for us to do. So we were able to, I kind of feel like we broke pricing in the industry. If the shows that had come around to do a regional show like this was a $5,000-$6,000 booth. And I'm just like, if I compete like that, I'm like, they're bigger than me. They'll probably just beat me. I'm like, what do I do? So we've always tried to be the least expensive event, in the market, both from an attendance standpoint and booth. So we had to do that. And then also working harder to make sure you have those local speakers that have information, not, oh, hey, you're the sponsor, let's come speak. And that was a norm in the industry that I was like, I can't do it. Yeah. And I just like, how do we get people to come to the show? We've got to find the leaders. We have to find the information. And then, bite that bullet. Like, oh, their competitors are presenting sponsor, but you're the best speaker. You didn't even buy a booth. Well, you're going to speak. We want you. Right. And that was that was out of the. It wasn't part of our original thought. And so we've had to do that. And then coming out of COVID, everything, we were shut down for 2 years, and coming back, you had to just be, how do we make people comfortable? How do we make people comfortable? Right. That was, that's a lot of different things. We don't print anything anymore. Just a lot of different things that we've adapted.
But also that pricing is the reason why people like us even have a booth, because, right, it allows the culture, the local, the independent owners to be involved. Like, we can't afford no booth at MJ BizCon. That is not showing up in the budget.
$7,000 just to book the booth.
Yeah, so
which I get it, but it doesn't work for the small business.
Correct.
Yeah. The pricing model for the attendance, I think, is really important to highlight, because not only is it the cheapest I've seen, but even folks ask me, like, you have a promo code, you have this, and I'm like, not for nothing.
It's not that expensive.
The other conferences, and I'm not even gonna name, not even BizCon, right, in general, conferences that I've been to, $500 to $1,000.
Right.
This is under $100 and tremendous value for 2 days. I also like the fact that it's 2 days. That's my own personal opinion, but I think by day 3, when I go to other conferences, I'm tired.
Dead.
Me too.
Dead.
We do all 2 day.
I think it's really tremendous how you have listened to what the market is telling you it needs, rather than locking in on your original vision. And I think that's really important for everyone to take away, because they're just like, this is what I wanted to do. And it's like, cannabis is different, and you have to be flexible.
Right. And it's such a great opportunity that there's so much competition. And that was when we looked at the attendee model. I was just like, in the end, we win by having a full house and having everybody get high ROI. The thought that even one person isn't coming because it's too expensive, like, you're not winning.
Right. Because
you might win that one event, but it wasn't a great event because too many people stayed away. You got to win the long term, and that's the biggest thing for me in this industry. Is you're going to always have good competition. If you're trying to get rich quick, you're probably not going to make it. You've got to give that sustainable value to people.
What did you do before conferences?
I worked in alternative media. I don't know if you're familiar with the Boston Phoenix.
Yep.
So, if people aren't from the area, it's like the Village Voice or San Francisco Bay Guardian. And it's very liberal, progressive journalism. And I originally wanted to be a writer, but I dropped out of college. I couldn't really get a job as a writer. So I was like, maybe if I become a salesperson, I'll get in there. And I just very quickly was like, wow, I like sales and operations. And so I did that, and I became a publisher there. Then eventually, by the time I left, I was the VP of sales and operations for the New England area. Now, of course, it's while the paper was dying. It was a print media, so I'm like, yeah, you were the captain of the Titanic. It's great. It's like terrific. So, but I learned, that's where I learned everything. And one of the bigger causes, it was all progressive causes in the journalism. and one of them was normalization of cannabis. So we were always looking by the end, how can we generate revenue? Let's do events related to the causes. And so I was kind of on the verge of doing it, but I left the Phoenix, they went out of business, and then it was 2 years later that I circled back to the event.
That's incredible.
Crazy.
Preparation. You had a foundation, brought it over to cannabis.
Yeah.
Fulfilled a need.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Timing was great.
Incredible story. I know that you have to run. We are in your show.
Yes.
I have one more question for you. If there's one message that you'd like to leave our audience, or even just anybody here at this show, about navigating the cannabis industry, what would it be?
You've got to establish yourself and provide value before you start asking for things. This industry is more cynical than any other industry. We all know so many people have come through, through just their entire life just being criminalized or looked down on. And now that it's an industry, everybody's coming in. So you're going to look cynically at a new person that you don't know.
Yep.
And it's just so, that's why I tell people, go to every event you can. Don't try to do business. Don't ask people for their business. Ask them what you can do for them. Learn from them. Listen to them. Learn their journey, who they are.
Yeah.
Once the people in this industry know you and trust you, they're going to be much more liable to do business with you. It's an extra step that I think is incredibly important.
Work somebody's booth. We need that booth help. Come work a booth.
Come work a booth and meet everyone.
Yeah.
No, I think that's incredible advice. And just quickly to circle back to what you were saying earlier, your relationship with Drew, right? We talk a lot about ecosystems on this show. And I have a relationship with Drew, right? Drew was trying to make her city more reflective of what she experienced here.
Right.
And reached out to you, knew that we added value, right? You
Yes.
invited us there. We didn't pay for a booth. Our
Right.
value add was this. Like, it's an ecosystem.
Right.
It really is.
Right.
Synergistic relationships. I think that's incredible advice. We thank you so much.
No, it's so glad to. You guys, it pays for itself, and it's just that's the whole thing. Is you've got to provide value before you ask for it back. That's a lesson I learned. The people that approach with an ask, I'm like, sometimes I need it, but I'm like, you're not going to do anything for me, right?
Yep.
And it gets old.
Yep, it does. It does. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Corey, you got any last questions you want to ask, man?
Well, just thank you for creating NECANN.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah,
Corey.
appreciate it.
Love
Thank
it.
you for giving black and brown people and broke, poor, can't afford a booth, folks, really good location too.
Startup business.
This is a killer. You guys are right on Boardwalk.
I tell you all the time, I was like, we get great location in the
Every time.
show, and that's hard to do and hard to get, right? So, yes, keep the people with money way over far in bad locations. Keep our broke asses right here in the front, and we appreciate it.
There you go. Sounds like a plan.
No, listen, we really appreciate the relationship that you forged with 420 NJ events, right?
Yeah.
That's really what looped us in, and we're just so grateful for the relationships. Thank you for, again, I emphasize what Corey said, thank you for following your dream and your vision and just giving a platform for everybody. So if you guys don't know, please follow NECANN. The Instagram, let me pass it to Mark. Shout everything out.
Our Instagram is actually NECANN.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird. And then all of the other ones are pretty much at, just NECANN.
NECANN. Okay. So follow, support, come get a booth, come add value, come attend. It's an incredible conference made and created by an incredible person that has great intention, and we're just happy to be here. So
Wow.
this is our last one.
I can't wait to show this to my wife.
Me neither.
It's going to be an argument ender. I've got a testimonial.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we will catch up with you next time. Please, we out.
It's